I'm going to turn that off. Right, you've told everyone we're recording. Fantastic. Share my screen. It's the last thing I need to do. I will share just that one. You should now see what we plan with Rail Meeting 2 up on the screen there. Fantastic. Hello, good morning. How is everyone? This is supposedly meeting 2, even though it's meeting 1, for about what we plan to do with Rails. So, and there's some hot off the press that came from, because I got to speak with Jez from the Rail Data Marketplace at the conference, which was really great. So there's some hot off the press pieces that may change, but it's more tweaking the policies and a few things than anything substantial right now, but it's going to be some of the little policies in the future and making sure that we don't have a little circular route where we're taking a data set that references our data set. We're trying to get independent information, which is a small challenge. So let's do our icebreaker. This is just so that people listening and watching on YouTube and that can recognize who people are, name, pronoun, where we're from, favorite train journey, and then we're going to go through just the usual, and then I'm going to focus in on rail data and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and the now, next, later, and even later. There's some ideas that have come up also from the last couple of days that we can talk through and see if those are really good. And then our usual feedback corner. It might take 2 hours. It might only take an hour. Totally fine with whichever way. So from the top, there's only 2 of you. So go me, Elise, Tim. I'm Dr. J. Use they as a pronoun. I'm the service owner for NaPTAN. Is my role at the moment at DFT, and my favourite train journey still has to be the Eurostar from St Pancras to Amsterdam, simply because I got to do that for about 3 months just before lockdown. So I had a lovely time of every Sunday afternoon taking a train and every Tuesday evening taking a train and watching the sunset across fields and things like that. It was a lovely, relaxing, resetting train journey at both ends of my working week. Hey, Alex, we're just going through the icebreaker. So we will come to you last, so you get a good line at it. And I'm going to go to Elise next.
Hi, I'm Elise. I'm from Northamptonshire Council, and I use she or her as a pronoun. And my favourite train journey still has to be going across the plains in Canada, doing a 3-day rail journey from Toronto through to Jasper. The scenery was absolutely stunning. My next task will be to complete it and do Halifax through to Toronto, and then from Jasper through to Victoria. But nice. That's still in the planning stage.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Tim, you're up.
Yeah, so Tim Rivet, I'm he, him. I am from Artig Inform, and also, I guess, probably a bit of the DFT subject matter expert, and favourite train journey, just because you can't do it anymore, going from Zaporizhzhia down to Sevastopol, through the bits of war zone now. Yeah, that was interesting. Just after the opening up of Ukraine back in 94. So
that would have been, because I love the fact that we're all talking about journeys of basically going across very flat farmland on trains. All three of us so far. Alex, good morning, welcome. We're just doing names, pronouns, where you're from, and what is your favourite train journey?
Good morning, Dr. J. I don't feel we've had a conversation for ages.
Absolutely.
Oh, you were meant to be coming down here. Then it was the election, and then something else happened, yeah. and then just chaos came. But we might pick that up, I hope, at some point. Sorry, my camera's
I'm definitely
not
hoping to. Oh, that's completely fine. I'm
No,
used to. I've gotten used to talking to people who are just there as their initials.
So Alex, he, him. I'm from Newport Bus. This might be relevant for me, but we'll see. Favorite train journey. They still do from South Wales to London. They still do the Pullman buffet car once a day, the dining car once a day. If you ever get a chance to do it, it's fantastic. It's about £40 for the meal. You sit in first class, and it's fantastic.
That sounds brilliant. I am looking for. So one of the things I'll put out to you and suggest to me, I can't be overnight away from Fred, my cat, at the moment. He's a little bit fragile. So I'm looking for really nice day trips that I can do from London, like a nice hop on a rail train at 7 or 8 in the morning, head off somewhere, have a nice stay somewhere, and come back and be back in London about 8 o'clock at night. That kind of nice, really nice day trip with a little bit of scenery and a little bit of something. So if you've got ideas of places to go, steam trains to see, things to do,
steam
send
trains.
Them on to steam trains. Oh, I love a good steam train.
Okay. Fine, I'll have a think.
Fantastic. BB, welcome. We've just done intro, so you're just in time to do your intro before I rock on with the plan for today. So we're doing name, pronoun, where you're from, and favourite train journey.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is BB. I am, my pronoun is she and her. I'm someone that works with Jay on NaPTAN. I totally forgot. I've got so many things going on.
I love the fact that BB, that's a sign your brain is so broken this morning that you've just listed that as your role. BB is our product owner, product manager who does a whole pile of policy work for us.
I am. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, it's been a bit busy lately. Right, and my favourite journey, the more fun thing. My favourite train journey. There's so many. Let me think. Do you know what I'm gonna say? So usually I choose one on holiday or something special and different. But to be honest with you, the train journey that I took for many years to work when for about 10 years, I guess, when I first started working and everything, that was an overground train in London. But the journey is so nice because generally I used to travel or get home at sunset, and because it's overground and I'm not stuck on the tube, it was just beautiful. Every day was different. So that was lovely. So about half an hour of just, staring out the window and taking in the sunsets. Lovely.
It's like that reset moment. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to do the usual thing of running through the housekeeping. I'm also just going to remember to do the housekeeping on the mural. Just bear with me here 2 seconds as I try to do this live. Is lock everything so you don't have to worry about accidentally moving things on me. So we're going to do just quickly running through staying in contact with us. The previously on is now all. We've got a site on NaPTAN. We're bringing all of the documentation in. It's a little slow, but we're grabbing all of the documentation from across the government websites and everything and just directing everything into one site, one page, so everything's consistent, because we've realized there's some real inconsistencies out there in the advice that it's giving to people on top of the schema. So we're just keeping that consistent. And then we're going to go through rail data. So I'm going to go through why we're looking at it, where we are now, next, later, and even later, and get your feedback on kind of the approach that we've taken and what we're doing, and keep you up to date on that. And Alex, because this involves rail replacement buses, I'm taking a small stab in the dark that you probably do some rail replacement buses, and this is going to be of slight interest to you with some of the stuff that's going to happen there. So staying in touch with...
Completely picked up on the reason why I'm here. I've been found out.
Tis I, Leclerc. BB's looking confused. BB's not from the hello generation.
I am. I got it perfectly.
It's a bit politically incorrect these days.
Unsoupçon of political incorrectness. So Now I'm basically going to be cancelled completely for still having some affection for hello. I'm staying in contact with NaPTAN. We've got the previous public meetings on a YouTube channel where this will be one of the funniest ones to put up. We've got an Eventbrite where you can find out about all the meetings. We're trying to get them published a little bit more ahead of time. Carla, who looks after our mailbox, is now helping me with that. You can sign up for our newsletter. We do actually now check the form. And then there's also our additional information page, which I will just click on, which has a whole pile of NaPTAN guidance and also information about A+ NaPTAN, as well as links off to the public meetings, etc. And we're just starting to build out the NaPTAN guidance, and anything that we're putting in, we're putting in here. One of the next things that we're going to do is so that I can reorder this list. Currently, it's just in the order of when it's been published. We're going to work out how to do an ordered list, but that's a feature that we're going to have to bring in because we came up with an MVP and we're just working out how to make it a little bit tidier for people to read. So that's pretty much how to stay in contact with us. So focusing on rail. I've tried to start off keeping our 3 personas that we're constantly using all the time. So we've got Beryl and Beverly and Brenda. So Beryl is traveling in to see Beverly, and it's her first time coming into this area on public transport. So it's Beverly's moved to a new house, and Beverly's moved to a new house, and Beryl is traveling in to see her. And it's her first time, so it's kind of representing that user from outside of the local area. Beverly is a user who's within the local area. She's lived in the area for years. She will call things maybe by different names. This is really important when we get to bus stops, maybe not so much with train stations, but a little bit with how you get in and out of the train station, what's the easiest way in and out, where the entrance is, and things like that are sometimes a little bit more locally known. And then there's Brenda, who has access needs. She's in an electric wheelchair. She is also trying to get to see Beverly. So it's kind of adding that extra layer of somebody with accessibility needs coming in. So to support all of their journeys, we need to do some work on rail stations. So we've got some rail infrastructure, which is on now 910, for those who don't know, is it was built as a centrally managed ATCO code. So all of the local authorities manage their own bus stops, but things like rail stations, ferries, trams, and airports are managed centrally by DFT. One of the things that we are looking at is how we devolve some of this and how we improve some of this. But for all the train infrastructure, the ATCO codes start 910. So this means that anything with 910 is about train infrastructure. So the first thing that we have is at the top, we've got a railway station. Now this is known, I've put in RLY because that's the stop type that it comes in. So if you're looking in NaPTAN to try to find a railway station, if you look for RLY, you'll find the railway station records. This needed to be audited because what we needed to do was understand, did we have all of the rail stations? Were the rail stations correct? Are they called the correct things, and are they in the correct place? That is the starter for 10. That is the first thing that we need to do before we try to do anything else. Because if we try to do anything else, and we've got stops that are different. So we've done a rail audit, and I'll talk you through that in a moment, of where we've got and what we're thinking of doing in the future so that we pick up as stations come online far better than we have been doing. Because at the moment, the only way that we know when stations come online is when somebody emails me saying, why is the station not in NaPTAN? And I'm like, there's a new station. So this is one of the things that we're just trying to pick up. One of the next pieces that will be in there, and I've reordered these, if you notice from last times I've talked about them, is the rail replacement bus stops. So this is when the station is being replaced, the trains are being replaced by a bus or a coach, usually a coach, or or a bussy coach or a coachy bus, I know that the style is quite different, and it all depends on the distance that they're traveling, the amount of people that they're expecting. No worries, Alex. The amount of people that they're expecting on it. But one of the things that we need to do is to get the rail replacement bus stops in, because we need to do the PSVAIR regulations, which is where there needs to be audio and visual information for passengers to tell them where the bus is going and where the next stop is. Now, because the rail replacement buses are covered under the local buses network, rather than do it, this will only need to be on a few things, everyone seems to have taken the approach, which I agree with, that we'll do this across the whole network rather than just the ones that strictly fall under the 15 miles. Otherwise, it just became a very complicated mess of which ones are which and switching around. And it's like, it's just going to help passengers know that they've hopped on the bus to Glasgow and not to Edinburgh when they hopped off at York. Because there's trains to Glasgow and Edinburgh from York from memory, and you want to hop on the right rail replacement bus, so you're going to end up significantly away from where you wish to go. The next pieces that we need to add into this currently is rail platforms, because we don't currently have platforms within NaPTAN. We've got all the rail stations, but only 3 platforms. And understanding the systems, by putting in the platforms, we're going to be able to allow journey planners to direct people a little bit easier. There are some stations where only 1 or 2 of the platforms are accessible, so it's and have lifts. So it's got to be really clear whether you're going to be catching a lift or whether you can get into the side of the platform, or this is just if your train comes in on platform 1 and you need a lift, you ain't going to be catching that train, babes, kind of thing. So it's just giving that information so that it's available at platform level. This also ties into the accessibility audit that has been done by National Rail and DFT. So there is an accessibility audit that does go down to platform level, so we can say which platforms have, some of them have benches, some of them don't, so we can give that information to passengers as to where they should be within the confines of the rail station. And then the last one, and this is possibly the most contentious one, and I think it's probably a really good one for discussion today as well, is rail station entrances. Now, currently, rail station entrances are managed by local authorities and they're not part of the 910. However, what we're finding is there will be 2 or 3 rail station entrances actually possible, and those are needed for access to recognise if you come in the side gate, it's a flat entrance onto a platform. But there is only 1 rail station entrance record in NaPTAN, and it's set by the local authority, and it's actually almost on the road rather than at the physical entrance. So one of the things that we're able to get from the data is the exact placements of the different rail station entrances. So we're going to look at bringing those into NaPTAN and removing them from the local authorities and moving them into the 910. Now, that's going to be a complicated migration, of course it is. And so it's going to be one of those things where there might be 2 records for a time, and we're going to just need to quietly make this change. But it's one of those things, and Tim, I'd be really interested in your thoughts on this as to whether this makes good sense and we just keep that rail station entrance, because we've also got some rail stations that don't have entrance records because the local authority hasn't known that they needed to do them. There's also been different, as far as I understand, some different approaches to doing rail station entrances. So it's just kind of trying to smooth it all out. So a rail station entrance is a rail station entrance. This is how we get the information and this is how we flow it through. And then we've got all of these kind of goals, which is it's all about putting in the right high quality data. I'll just let Amy in. It's all about putting in high quality data so that somebody like Elise from a local authority maximizes their time and the results for the passengers. Somebody Neil, who is depots, somebody like Alex, and we've pretty much got everyone here. They want to be able to easily select the right stops for their bus routes, especially their rail replacement bus routes. They want to easily build those routes, build that planning in their systems so that the announcements can come through correctly. And Mike and Amy, hi Amy, you've just turned up, perfect timing. They want really good, high quality data within the systems so that they can direct passengers to the best routes between two different places. And then I've put down one as me, as the service owner of NaPTAN, I want to ensure the NaPTAN data is of the highest quality so that consumers so that data consumers trust the NaPTAN data. What I'm trying to remove is the changes that people downstream are making to NaPTAN, that they're not flowing back to us. We know that people have been making changes to the NaPTAN data to improve it, to make it better. And because some of that data hasn't been flowing back to us, that's where we've ended up with some real differences between some of the downstream systems. And the more we can get the quality data into NaPTAN, the better, because it's sitting in the right place and it's making everyone's agreed on what the changes should be as well. It's not these people have interpreted this or pushed this slightly differently. So that's my overall goal here. Amy, would you? I'm not throwing you under the bus. But just very, very quickly, would you mind doing the icebreaker? It's more for people who are watching the YouTube and that, because I know there's going to be quite a lot of discussion today. Just making sure that we've got your name, your pronoun, where you're from, and your favourite train journey is the screwball that I've got to give you.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Amy Brown. Pronouns she or they, from Travelline, Open Data Platform Manager at Travelline. And train journey. I can't. Train journey. I don't know. I like going on northern trains because they're very easy to take your bike on. So any northern train journey, because you don't have to book and there's always space, and that's very nice and stress-free.
Excellent. That's absolutely perfect. So what I'm doing today is we're just running through trains. So I've just gone through kind of the setup of what we need to kind of talk through and think about for rail stations. Now, one of the things that we need to do with the audit, but I'll talk about it here. Sorry, I was just seeing whether I mentioned it there. One of the things that we're doing with the audit is setting in a policy, a direction that says the 910 stops are the only live stops on the heavy rail service. Now, heavy rail versus light rail, it's the trammy trains and the trainee trams and the locally owned 940 stops, 940 platforms. They're going to have their own. They're going to go through all of this as well. They're going to have their own section for it. This is about the National Rail. So effectively, if it's on the National Rail website as a station, it needs to be in the 910 records. When I talk about the National Rail, just a sec, I just need to move the stupid... Oh no, I need to move the wonderful Teams thing out of the way. So this website here for National Rail, if it's on this site, we know that it's live because it goes on this, as far as we can tell, it goes on this site and this date and the data sets that run this site a couple of months before trains start running through, so passengers can start to book journeys in the future. We're just trying to work with the data owners to confirm exactly when that happens. We're keeping an eye out for Pineapple Road and a couple of the others that are coming through. There's 3 stops by Pineapple Road is one of them, and I can't remember the other 2. They're ones that we're looking out for. When the moment they appear in the record, that's when we know how much lead time we've got before they actually start to go live. I know we're just trying to figure this out, so that, because one of the big things we needed to do is we don't just need to audit what exists. We need to make sure that we find out when train stations happen prior to somebody emailing me going, why is this train station not in the system, not in NaPTAN? So we're using the same data sets that these guys are using. We're getting in to talk to them, which just happened yesterday. I spoke to a guy from Rail Data Marketplace, and I said, I'm struggling to get hold of the right person. And he said, oh, I know that person and this person and this person, so I'll set you up some meetings, which has been great. So at least this was all the stuff that we talked about a while ago of even just trying to do an audit has been a little bit of a problem. So now we're able, we've figured out how to get some data from the back end of this site. We're making sure that we know where it's coming from and the time lag between the station actually going to have passenger trains running through it, so that we can get it in time to give to Amy and everyone, so people can plan journeys in 2 or 3 months' time, because that's when people know that the train station's going to be there and they can reroute their journeys. But that won't be able to happen till a particular date. So we're just trying to figure out how we might handle that once we see the data. And until we see a lot of the data, we're not quite going to know what's going to happen. So what we've done, one of the big things that we've done is we've audited what currently exists. And this is brought up, we're about 15% out on NaPTAN. So we have 21 stops plus at least 3 more probably. And then if you include South Cambridge, there's at least 4 more that we need to add. We know this. Everyone's telling me there's 15. I'm like, no, I know there's 21. So we're going to get through, and once we've started this cleanup, that addition, once we've got confirmation that we're pulling data from the right place, we will see how we can get those stops added, those stations added. It's making sure that we're pulling data from the right place. We've got 2,500 that match. Yay, we've got the stations there. We've got 218 where we have to do some work with the names. This is where the name of the station and the name on NaPTAN is not quite correct. Amy, I'm sure everyone's been tweaking these all the time, and I'll show you a couple because I'd really like some feedback as to which way round we do some of the renaming. And then we've got 160 to remove. Some of these we'll do these in tranches. Some of these are very obvious ones. The name on NaPTANs has the word closed on it. It's kind of very, very obvious. Some of them are duplicates. We've got 3 records for Paddington, London Paddington, Paddington Station, Paddington London. I'm like, we can get rid of at least 2 of those because people have put them in with incorrect naming conventions. We've got 5 Clapham junctions. We won't take out all 5 the 4 redundant Clapham junctions, possibly until we've got platforms in and rail station entrances, because I want to understand why there were 5, and I don't want to break people's systems if you need 5 Clapham junctions to make your systems work, whether it's because those represented different blocks of trains or what. But we need to kind of look into Clapham Junction. I don't think I'll hold a full 2-hour meeting on Clapham Junction, but I might hold meetings on the different groupings of those stops. Does this kind of make sense to everyone? I'm seeing nods from Amy and Tim. I can quickly show you how we did it. What we did was we took, and this had to be done manually because there was no way of doing it any other way. There was a 2023 data set from the Rail Data Marketplace, which was supposedly supposed to be updated in 2024 and wasn't. So we've just gone with the 2023 version. We then went through the National Rail website as well. So we got a feed from there. So we used their version of the name. And then we also use the NaPTAN common name. So we've got a lot of, and having the CRS code means we can just double check that we're looking at the right stations, because we know that the CRS code and the tip lock codes are often represented in the ATCO code. So there's a little bit of extra double checking that we've found the right stations. And that's going to be when we go to remove a station, we're going to do the double check that we're removing the right one and double check the tip locks that we've not got. We're not removing the same way as we do with buses. We won't remove anything that's got that's got live passenger services running through it. So we can use some of the different feeds from the Rail Data Marketplace to make those calls. So for example, here's a name update one. So we've got Adlington It's represented as Adlington, Lancashire, Adlington, Lancashire, and then we've got Adlington Lancs Rail Station. My suggestion is that Lancashire is more important than rail station. So how do we shorten the second half of the rail station part of the name when we want to have more to put in Lancashire so that it clearly matches across all of the different systems, and NaPTAN just has the word rail station or rail star. Or we go and we have a look at removing the limit of 47 characters or 48 characters. So there's a little tweak there, and this is why there's 2 tranches of name changes. Tim, you've got your hand up because this is an interesting little moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rail Station was put in because people didn't want to have to bother with the ATCO code and working out what sort of stop it was. And so it was an easy way to help people in journey planners, in effect, as well as some data editors, just to understand what's a rail station and what's not. Because if rail station goes from the name, then some journey planners don't flag up what type of stop. So that would be an issue. But I've also realised why some of the stations will be duplicated, because where you've got National Rail and TfL overground services, they're often, some of them are physically the same place and you can go, you can walk between the platforms, but they will have been marked as separate stations.
And yeah, that is the trainee tram, trammy train stops that we've got. I was talking with the National Rail First Mile group, and I'm going to take some of the questions to them because they've brought up the differences between the sharing of the infrastructure, especially when it's the same platform. Chalfonts and Latimer is the example that I use because it's got a Metropolitan line and a National Rail line that pull up to exactly the same platforms. And they use the RTI shows both informations. So that one needs to exist in both services. Obviously, it's making sure that the ones that are National Rail are National Rail, and they haven't been converted into light rail. So there's a number of stations that have been converted to light rail and are no longer run by National Rail. So it's doing that separation within NaPTAN simply because we need to be canonical about where we get the data from. So 910 will hold the National Rail stuff. If it's not on the National Rail website as a station, because it's a light rail station or it's a metropolitan style station or something, we will put it in as 940 and it will be in the right location, etc. But then it's not going to show as a National Rail station. There's a number of National Rail stations that are showing as rail stations, and they're now metro stations.
Well, I think we need to be really careful here because the lines are getting blurred as more of the network around London is taken over by TfL. And there will be that there are platforms which are served by Underground, by TfL Rail, and by National Rail as well, and they're all the same place. And so, yeah, making sure that from a planning point of view, we don't end up with 3 places called the same thing and walks and waits and things being put in by journey planners that might not need to be there.
So that's what I'm trying. So there are 2 options here. The option that I've gone for, because trying to get something that means that 2050 me doesn't have to make any decisions, because that's one of the problems here. To be honestly fair, it's come up with the Luton dark connection. Was, well, should it be 910 or should it be 940? And those decisions have been made in very different ways since 2005 by the various people who've done the job that I'm doing. So what I'm trying to do is put a policy, work with the rail team, work with the rail delivery group, National Rail, Network Rail, GBR Rail, the rail team inside DFT, to get right, if it's heavy rail and it's passenger, we're going to put it on this ATCO code, and we'll call it rail station or rail replacement or whatever. And if it's got anything other than that heavy rail running through, like it's locally controlled, it's the metropolitans, and that we will have a second record, or we will have another record. I need to figure out what to do with those multi-stop stations like Chalfonts and Latimer, because I know that there's more of them. I got to use the Elizabeth line, which is wonderful. It turned an hour journey into just over half an hour by taking the Elizabeth line, and I'm like, it's marvelous. But seeing where it pulls up, seeing how the infrastructure works, this is why we need platforms. If we don't have platforms with rail stations, we can't do this correctly, because if they're both pulling into the same platform, that's really easy to show. If they're pulling into the same platform and it's a flat cross-platform transfer, that's going to be really easy to show. If they're pulling into different platforms and it's you have to up, down, across, or down, across, up, whichever way around you do it, to get to the other platforms, we've got to be able to show that. And you can't show that until you've got platforms. We've got some platforms on the 940s, but not all of them. We've got almost no platforms for rail. So focusing on getting a rail station with its platforms is kind of the first starter, and then we'll look at how they blend up. So Amy, there might be, I'm just giving you a heads up, because I know that with the journey planners, this will be, I know you probably already have some of this information from National Rail, but you're having to combine a lot of stuff. Because we're about what is where, we're going to tell you, here is this platform, it's platform 2, it's platform 3, it's platform 4, and here's where it is. And that way, hopefully, we can also start to get some of the GTFS pathways, even for the small stations, built in, because there are some platforms that are accessible when you need flat entrances from a side entrance, but you need to talk to the main office or something to come in the side. So there's lots of little edge cases that we can start to pick off once we get those platforms in. And getting those platforms in means that allows us to pull down those stations. And if we say 910 is only live stops on the heavy rail service, or live passenger stops on the heavy rail service, that's going to be a little bit, make it much easier for us to automatically pull in a new station as it comes online. Hopefully a little bit of complication now, we can detangle it. We're going to have some duplicate records for a little bit of time. And then we can slowly get rid of those duplicates, especially when we've got rail station entrances and things like that. But getting all the stops in and making sure that we pull from the right data sets, and then having the rail replacements and the platforms, is just going to make the rail data that much stronger. Tim, you seem, I sense I'm making you a bit nervous.
Well, I'm just, it's the first time I've really thought about the TfL challenge as they take over stations, because some of them still appear in National Rail data sets and some of them don't, and I need to have a think about it from a transition point of view, which is the real key challenge.
Yeah. Can we just do London? Because I know that London is that extra complexity edge case layer, and it is
the edge case for now, but in future Manchester, for example, want to take over the local stations, and
Mhm.
so there will be other authorities that will
So-
become TFL, more TFL-like. So getting it right is going to be really important, and it's really good to be thinking about it at this point before Manchester and Leeds start to do things.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just try to find where to find a station. I know that I can do it. Stations, here we are. Where was I yesterday? I was at it's not Canary Wharf. Because Canary Wharf is not going to be quite so helpful. Excel Centre, but it's not called Excel Centre on the rail network. It's called Cannon. It's not Cannon House.
Cannon Park.
No. But here we are. We've got Canary Wharf Elizabeth line, which is the one before the station that I wanted. So we can see in the system who's managing the station. That's a piece of the information that is coming through from in the data set that we pull.
Okay.
So that's going to allow us, that's a whole layer of information that we could put in NaPTAN, but I'm not sure whether it's really good for what is where, but it will help us make decisions about where it should go. But one of the strategy pieces that I think would be really good for 2050 me is that if it's on this National Rail website, it's not Canada Water. I'll remember it in a moment. I'll quickly go and plan the journey. Just give me 2 seconds. If it's in the data set that runs this website, which is a rail knowledge base of all of the stations, it's all of the passenger stations. That's, if it's in there, it needs to be in NaPTAN. What we're trying to make sure is it's not self-referential. So it's not saying we only show stations that are in NaPTAN, because we know that they don't, but we want to make sure that they're getting no information from NaPTAN, or if they do, we go and verify it from another source. So we've also been looking through Corpus, Darwin, NaPTAN, because everyone refers us back to NaPTAN. Hilariously, I think BB and I would be wealthy and not having to work if we had money for every time that somebody had told me I should have a look at this NaPTAN data set. But it's trying to figure out how we find out, because it's really important then when we put in rail replacement buses, because I don't want to have to do things I don't want to have to do things manually anymore. I want this to happen a little bit more at the data set, and it's more the role of somebody like me and somebody like BB and Carla is more just checking for anomalies and just making sure that we've got the ability to edit something should we need to edit, but everything is coming across from the main ones. Let me just do this planning, and I'll just bring up the TfL Go website. Are they gonna? Not now. TfL Go, maps and routes for planning your journey. I just want to do it on the website. Do you not do it any? Plan a journey. Here we are. From, I'm not going to put in my postcode. I'm going to put in Elephant and Castle. And Castle to Excel Centre.
Custom House.
That's the one, Custom House. Thank you, Tim. I knew it began with a C and it had a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we are. If I went to Excel Centre and I don't go to the DLR station, it should show me going Moorgate, Liverpool Street Station, and then Elizabeth Line. What this doesn't show me, and just to show me the steps, the amount of steps that I would need to climb, or go up and down. It assumes that you can find the lifts, because the lifts are complicated. All the Elizabeth Line stations have lifts to make it more accessible, they sometimes have escalators. They often have escalators as well. So you've got to know where the lifts are to not have to use stairs. And this is why getting the platforms in to those stations is going to be really important, because we can then put the lifts in, which means if you need a lift, an access journey, you can actually go around access lifts and escalators. They don't. That's not exactly that useful. But yeah, and that is actually it says 46 minutes. It's actually not so bad. Downstairs. Oh, they do it that way. That's how you do it. How did that appear? Because that's weird. That wasn't there when I started. Anyway, I will just go that site, because it used to even tell me how many stairs down it was. Right, focusing back on this. So, Rail Station Audit. So Amy, this is giving you a heads up. There's going to be quite a bit of pieces going in and out. We will tranche them. We will message out the changes that we're going to make at least a couple of weeks ahead, saying these things. Here's a list of this tranche. These stations are going. These stations are being renamed, and things like that, so that you can be aware of having to update your NaPTAN data for the rail set, but also if there's any issues, you can come screaming to us. Oh, have you double checked which of these stations it's going through, because we've got live traffic going through that station. So we'll do some of that checking. I just wanted to give you a heads up, and all other journey planners that will be pushing out in the newsletter and everything. And I might even do a separate newsletter of here's rail stations coming, going, and moving around. I haven't done locations on this, by the way, so if stations have moved or are not quite in the right places, and we know there's a couple that are just slightly up and down, because where the rail station is mapped at the moment just seems to be a random point within the rail station, and this is going to get us into all kinds of fun when we start on the next piece. Let me choose Beverley. Believe it or not, there's a Beverley rail station, which I kind of love. So when we zoom in on Beverley rail station, I'll just click off it. Just click off it onto something else. Come on. Let me click on something. Oh, there we are. So we can see there's Beverley rail station. This location where Beverley is marked is just chosen. Sometimes it's in the middle of the track. Sometimes it's at one end or the other end of the platforms. It's really variable where the station is mapped to. And this comes in a little bit when we start to do the rail replacement buses, because trains, they kind of we know they be on the tracks. Whereas when you're trying to do the rail replacement buses, you've got a little bit of a space where the rail replacement buses could be. So in the first round of doing the rail replacement buses, we're going to map them to the same places the rail station is. Now, that means that, because, hey, we've got nowhere else to map them to. And I'll go through what we're going to do. But for the MVP, we're just mapping them to the rail station. Now, we're telling everyone who's in the innovation teams, we're going to do this, and we're going to give you, don't look for your 20 to 50 meters, look a lot longer for how close you are to the locality, because 20 to 50 meters in some places will get you into the middle of a complex place, and it won't be where you want to be. Because we have instructions from some things like, I think Beverley, actually, I'll just go to here, and I can show you this one. Stations, go to Beverley. Bev. I love the fact that Beverley just appears everywhere. So when we look at rail replacement services, which is what we get from the different train operators, we're getting pick up and drop off in station car park. Now, station car park is here somewhere, and it's actually quite a decent size. There's quite a bit of car park to be. So what we wanted to do was ensure that anyone who's running a bus to there isn't trying to look down to 20 meters, because it isn't currently mapped down to that small locality the way that we do for your standard buses. We're trying to say, hey, map it to a decent distance. I've said a radius of 200 meters seems to capture most, is doing a lot of lifting there, but it will capture most rail stations. Rail replacement buses will be within that 200 meter radius of where the rail station is said to be. Now, that's a bit imprecise, but it's our MVP, and we will look at improving that. So the next piece that we're going to do, I'll just run back to here. So MVP, all stations will have one rail replacement bus stop, and it's going to be mapped to where the rail station is, and we're going to tell people it's got to be big. The next release, which will happen very, very quickly, we need to then remove all the rail replacement bus stops where they don't exist. So we know that there's some stations where they don't have rail replacement bus stops, or they're not practically rail replaced. So there's a couple in the Fens up in Norfolk that are stations for hopping off to do big long walks, and there's no roads nearby. There's some up in the Highlands of Scotland where there's no roads nearby, or if you want to get in there, it's on a 4-wheel drive there. There's one that we know is on an island, so it's a rail replacement boat rather than rail replacement bus. So these are ones that there's exceptions. I think there's about 20 we're going to go hunting through. There might be less than 20, but that's the amount that we think there is. And then we're going to start validating the rail replacement bus information. So going to look through, we've got somebody's contacted us, I'm not going to mention his name because I haven't asked if it's okay. He does a lot of work for a couple of rail replacement and builds some rail replacement bus journeys for a number of TOCs. He's got a manual data set of where, because he tells his drivers of where the rail replacement bus stops actually are, which is slightly different to what's published on the National Rail website. So we're going to just do some validation and verification of those and figure out how close we are to the actual rail replacement bus stops, validating that information. And then we're going to do the rest of the cases to try to reduce this down. So we're going to look at first for things that are maybe beyond 200 metres. Those rail replacement bus stops, there's a couple that have been mentioned that are at other ends of the town, because the town roads, the roads by the rail station are slightly too narrow for for buses and coaches to get through. So the rail replacement bus stops are about 300 to 500 metres away at the other ends of the town. So we will map those in precisely because we know exactly where they are, and they're beyond that 200 metres. So we're starting to just tranche fixing the rail replacements where there's more than one rail replacement stop. So for example, in York, we know there's multiples because there's some going north, some going south to the different areas, because York's that hub point. So those big hub point ones where they have 4 or 5 rail replacement bus stop areas for rail replacement buses going in different directions, we'll map those in. And then we will also map in ones at an existing bus stop. What we're going to do, rather than asking the people who do your rail replacement buses to download the entirety of NaPTAN and go hunting for specific bus stops, we're going to create a second pin on top of the current bus stop of a rail replacement stop, because it's indicating if you need to rail replace, you just go and stop here. You don't have to. It means it simplifies things for the TOCs and for the people doing rail replacements. They only need one data set, because that bus stop is used, and I'm not going to say once in a blue moon because there's lots of work happening on the rail, but it's used when there's rail replacement buses for rail replacement buses. If the bus stop gets moved, we will probably need to figure out a little bit of linking. If this bus stop moves, move this record. There's little things like that that we can start to do in the systems, but we're going to keep all the rail replacement bus stops within the 910 kind of area. Does this make sense to people? I'm going to say red flags, green lights. So red flags, oh, this is watch out for this. Green lights is, this makes sense to me, go ahead with it. So I just really like your red flags and green lights to pretty much what's in this now section of the things that we're going to do. And I know that's been a lot of information thrown at you in the last hour.
So for some journey planners, the rail replacement, just the rail stations, to be fair, will probably be in stop areas to enable journey planning. And so we might have to redo some stop areas. But that's as long as we know what those are up front, that's easy. That's just a case of not losing those. I'm thinking Ments in particular.
Because Ments is the one that really likes its stop areas, doesn't it? It's yeah, and it's trying to think. So I've asked the team to look at how we put rail replacement bus stops in, and then so they're coming back, and I've said we need a kind of parent-child relationship between the items. How we do that within the data is up to them to figure out which way we want to structure it, and we will be providing the data to everyone as soon as we've got some prepared, so that you can, or to everyone who's doing this. Tim and Amy, you will get it as well, so that you can have a look and go, this would work, this wouldn't work, and give us that feedback, because we can iterate really quickly on the structures. We want to make sure that whatever we do is going to work for as many people as possible, and across as many different journey planners as possible. Amy, Alex, I know that you do rail replacement buses, or I'm sure you do. What's red flags, green lights?
Yeah, this makes sense. Obviously, we don't input any data by doing rail replacement. So, however the NaPTAN looks in the system, I wouldn't be putting that in. It would be for the train operating company to do, presumably. But it would just what is great for us more than anything else is this, for once, probably an actual definition of where the rail replacement bus is actually meant to stop. Some it's obvious, but particularly on some of the rural or the valley stations, you can't get anywhere near the station. And the guy last week driving the minibus went down the side street, but the guy now driving the coach this week is now on the, can't get there, and he's outside the pub. But the guy last week couldn't stop outside the pub, so he's down there, and it's a nightmare. So this would be great for no other reason than, like, this is decided now. This is where you're stopping, guys, and you know, if somebody says it's somewhere else, no, this is what's been decided nationally. So I think that's what it'd be really useful for.
Fantastic. And Alex, I think one of the things that, based on what you've said there, is we also need a little bit of a feedback loop, which is part of the piece that we're working on for bus operators, being able to feedback when a bus and a standard bus stop needs to be tweaked and moved because it's slightly the data's out of alignment with the physical world. It would be good also to have that for the rail replacement buses of, look, you've got it here, because of the size of the buses that we're using, this isn't safe. Could we move it to here? And we can agree. We can then start the discussion with everyone to make sure that record gets moved to the right spot that is safe and
that'd be
visible
amazing
for people to pick up. So so I'll put in there that we just need a feedback loop for bus operators. So it's going to be for bus ops and TOC. So if the TOC says, hey, look, I know that the bus operators want to stop here, but if we've cleared out the car park, we'll clear out the car park, and you can use the car park, for example, as one of the ones that I use. Because what we don't want is to have the stop in the car park, and if people trying to drive a coach into a car park and getting stuck with all the cars if it's not been cleared out. So I know your bus drivers ain't going to do things road. If they look at a spot, they're not going to put their coach in there, but it's just that was one of the reasons for not putting these in as standard bus stops, because if they were stuck in the middle of a car park, somebody without thinking might accidentally route a bus to there, and the bus driver, with trying to meet it, just turns and suddenly realizes that they're about to drive into a car park full of cars and get themselves stuck, and that creates a bit of confusion and problems. Tim's laughing because it's happened, hasn't it?
Well, I was just thinking of the incident a couple of weeks ago where they did take over a car park, and there were half a dozen vehicles in the car park waiting to pick people up from the train. The car park operator, because it wasn't Network Rail, came along and shut the gate, which they do at a particular point in time every day, and locked them all in. And the bus driver had to get their credit card out and pay that car park operator to unlock the gate.
There are edge cases to my edge cases that just astound me.
You can't deal with that one, Dr. J.
No. But no way. I'm not touching with that. But that does bring up a couple of other things that we would, I think, need to be slowly added here. So, for example, one of the other things, once we've got all of these done, and this is multiple years hence, things like the cycle parking within a rail station, which is very different to the cycle parking outside of a rail station. If you've parked your bike within a rail, Amy's nodding. If you've parked your bike in the locked area within a rail station, you need to know the staffed operating hours to get your bike back. Because if you try to get your bike back at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's locked in the rail station ain't open, that's something you need to have been made aware of. And because it's linking into the active travel piece. And so, for example, I know, because I'm a geek and I watch Jeff Marsh a lot. No, I'm not a geek. I watch Jeff Marsh a lot. He was just going through the new Cambridge South Station, which is parking for like 1,000 bikes within its infrastructure. So if that's going to be only available because it's slightly more secured and it's only available during the operating hours of the station, that needs to be, people need to be aware of that, and it's a slightly different set of bike locking up compared to your standard just chain your bike to these things, which is outside the rail station. So the outside the rail station ones don't care about, inside the rail station ones possibly do. And it's also the car parking because there's park and rides and there's the car parking, and it's how do we indicate, is the park and ride part of the public transport network? How do we indicate, do we need to indicate park and rides? Again, bigger questions than right now, because right now we're just focusing on getting the right number of rail stations in the system, but these are future things that we can start to look at, because we're going to have that very clear set of data, and anything that's in here, bicycle hire, not available. Okay, that's easy. But one of the other things is station map. Is this one going to be really useful? Oh yeah. So here's the wonderful thing. And Alex, you're probably very used to this. It says, you'll be picked up from the car park, but there's in fact they've indicated 3 car parks. So there's car park 1, 2, and the third kind of less official car park here. So which car park do we send somebody to?
I do love these like 1980s maps. I think there's something quite nostalgic about them. I think they've probably done it. They look like they've been done in Excel.
Absolutely, I find them. I
love them.
Also recognizing that they are. If we just do a quick Google person, they're actually wonderfully inaccurate in a number of places. So there is obviously quite a lot of car parking here. That's how I know that there's actually 3 car parks, not 2, because went and did this. There's a rail station entrance here, but also when you come out and I come down, there's a weird little entranceway here which gives you level. Sorry, you can tell I've done this a few times because I know exactly where to walk now if I can walk the right way. If I walk just along here, if I turn besides the tracks and take this, now this is apparently a flat entranceway onto one of the platforms, but I don't know the pathway width here. It's really hard to judge. I'm guessing that's actually slightly narrower than it could be for the width of an electric wheelchair. Would need to go and double check that, and would also need to confirm that that is there. But I think there's also a naughty people making sure that the crossing light arms aren't down and doing a run up the side there onto the platform. Because I'm guessing if you wanted to get onto this platform, you can see you've got the little walkway. This platform, I wonder how many people do the unofficial walkway, and risk the fine to get up onto the train there. If they're trying to get flat into that, or they've realised that they thought they were going to this platform, they need this one, they just run out and do a run around because they don't want to go up and over, and they don't want to do the full run around the station, which is another couple of minutes walk. So this is a relatively, but that map doesn't look entirely like this map because it doesn't have the walkway off. It's got ramp and that there, and it's got that there. Now, is that coming out here or is that the one going down? But that's at the other end because that's where the bridge is. So it's down this end. There's actually, or which end am I looking at? So the matching these maps to the world is also, we're going to have a little bit of where actually is the entrance, where is the walkway, and how accessible is it, is going to be a lot of the questions that come up there. Okay, so if we've got a few little bits and pieces, but we've got basically green, at least as a local authority, taking your rail station entrances from you eventually, is that a red flag or a green light for you? Elise has given up on us and has given up talking about rail for the moment.
If we can get some consistency and better data than there's there now, then
yeah,
I think most won't cause a problem. I think maybe there will be some combined authorities that perhaps go, actually, we know better than the rail industry and we need to manage it. But
yeah, I think it's very, very much about indicating those entranceways, because this has in fact three or four different entranceways, because there's a side one, there's the main one, there's a side one here, just along here somewhere, and then there's also the side one over there. So it's just being really, really clear how you can get into there, which is not currently shown on any of the planners or anything like that. So I'm sure people from, again, it's those local knowledge versus outside knowledge, and it's giving people coming in who haven't grown up with this railway station knowing the way to get to this platform is not to go in and over there if you've got a buggy, but to come up and around the side. It's those little things that I think are going to really help people.
I think as long as it's maintained,
yeah, and
that's almost more the key thing. I wonder whether rail station entrances, where some of them are on the public highway, have been put there to overcome journey planner challenges. Don't know whether, Amy, because if it's off the highway, sometimes journey planners won't plan because it needs to be within X of a road.
Those might be interesting little pieces to bring across. And in fact, I'm just going to put that here, relationship to road.
Yeah, I don't know whether any of those restrictions apply because certainly the old Atkins planner and the journey plan one struggled. But does anybody use journey plan anymore?
Don't know.
Because I think the Northeast have moved off it now, haven't they?
Northeast are on I'm going to say Nexus.
Yeah, but that they used to use journey plan.
So these are kind of the regional travel lines and the regional travel planners. Yeah. So just so Tim, this might be one of the things that as we start to bring in some of this, if you could help us kind of gather together all of the different people who run the journey planners and we can just talk them through. But Amy, we might also.
Well, I was going to say that's be a combined effort because I think Amy's probably got more up-to-date contacts than I have.
Oh no,
because
I was also going to say to Amy if I could get 15 minutes at the next big travel line meeting just to kind of ensure that people are on board with aware of the changes coming so that anyone can come screaming to me going, you're going to break my system, and I'll be like, okay, so let's work on timing.
Yeah. Have you had the dates for the meetings this year from Monica, or is that something we need to send through to you?
I'm going to go possibly because I have tons of meetings in my diary and the team are helping me sort it out. If you send it to me and Carla, Carla will make sure that me and BB and her and Lauren maybe as well are at least aware of the meetings and we can plan around them. Because I'm also going to try to get 10-15 minutes with the First Mile Rail group just to kind of talk them through this as well and just say this is what we're planning on doing, red flags, green lights. No. Yeah.
I think
would be really useful.
The next Travel Line Regions group we've got is next Wednesday. I think you should have had the invite, but I can send one specifically to that.
Yeah, that would be great
if you're available, because there's one coming up really soon. So
yeah, let me just double check.
We can get you a slot on that agenda.
That's the second. I don't have it in my diary, so I'm not on. I've not got it, so I'm not on the agenda. I've got all my public meetings now color coded because BB showed me how to color code my things on my calendar. So I now have all the public meetings that I've got to do color coded, because it just means I know that I can't bust over them. So we're researching what entrances are, how to get that data. We know that it exists. We know that it's also part of the accessibility information, the accessibility audit that Atkins did. So we're trying to get that and also want to see how we would get that for new stations as stations are upgraded and entrances are changed, how that's going to look. And so that's kind of where we are with rail. I can run through anything else if we want to, but that's kind of the main things that I wanted to talk through and just get sense checks that we're not doing anything that's raising a lot. Tim?
At some point we need to talk about me getting some non-point again by talking about schema, because it will need a schema update.
Yeah,
and whether I guess whilst probably the big one is whether it falls under rail, which is off street, or whether rail replacement is classed as on street. and whether that makes a difference for journey planners and apps and the way that they would treat it.
Yeah, and so I haven't really considered the off street on street. Do you want to talk me through and help us all understand what the intent of off street and on street is? Because there's a few weird applications of this, and it'd be really interesting to understand the intent, the original intent behind what's off street and what's on street. And I'm nullifying both of us for this discussion. We are not winning Eurovision this year. I'm not even playing. Won't go into the politics. Not playing Eurovision. But we're both nullfied. But if you could help me understand, because I know there's a very clear distinction in the type of stops, but sometimes the distinction is a little bit blurred as well in the way that it's implemented. So Tim, what was the intent? And then we can sit down and have a think through it. Tim suddenly like,
My brain cells are not normally too bad. My dementia is benefiting me sometimes by remembering old things better than new things. So fundamentally, that NaPTAN has two types of stop point. On street, which is largely bus, taxi and car, and basically that was trying to define something that you would that uses the public highway, I guess is probably the way to define it. And then you've got off-street stops, which are things like airs, ferries, rail, light rail, and bus and coach stations, which you don't, aren't on the public highway. And so that was sort of the rough segregation. It was, if it's on tarmac that the local authority or the highway authority owns, then it's on street, and it's bus, taxi and car. If it's off street, you have to go off that public highway to access.
So this is where I'm not challenging it. I'm very much just trying to pull it apart from the passenger's point of view, because there's in a person's, in my mind, Beryl and Beverly walking up this road to Beverly Station are not going to cognitively recognize the transition between I'm on street, I'm off street. So what, and I'm just making sure that I understand, if we do it one way, if we have, for example, the rail replacement bus stop sitting up here by Beverly, which is technically off street, it doesn't look off street in a lot of places because it's and that's what I just wanted to understand, the thinking behind it, and possibly from Amy and Alex, the working practices that it would change if it's on street or off street.
I'm just thinking about the slightly bigger picture above NaPTAN and NetX of the overall architecture of Transmodel. And actually, I think probably practically the better definition is, if it's on street, you can get to it any time of the day or night. But if it's off street, you might have access restrictions. Just looking at the way that NetX has implemented Stop Point, you've got access restrictions. So, it might only be open, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. or something like that. and so that's off street. So, a bus station will close in the middle of the night, for example, and a rail station will. And so that's probably the
Okay. No, that makes it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot better sense, actually. So just to make sure that I've understood it, and like you say, using that trans
model.
Thank you. I was trying to remember my brain like yours. I can at least blame menopause or being on the other side of it now. Haha. So on street, it's accessible anytime, day or night, which is weird because we've got a number of bus stations in London that are listed as off street that by this definition should be on street because they're 24/7 bus stations. Interesting little corner, and we can play with those definitions. And off street access is restricted by time, which it very, very much aligns with rail stations, metro stations, things that have big locks that stop you from getting to them. Whereas so Victoria Bus Station is on street because it's available 24/7 and 24/7 buses run through it. Victoria Coach Station would be off street because it does actually close down for an hour or so in the middle of the night from memory. Its doors do shutter because there's nothing running between particular times. So that could be something that we start to cognitively. This comes up, and part of the reason I'm asking this, the public bus stops that are on private ground, for example, this bus stop at the front of a supermarket. I'm not going to mention a brand of a supermarket because there's multiple brands of supermarkets and you can stop wherever you like, but there are often a bus. I know of one in New Cross Gate where there is a public bus stop that's served by 3 or 4 24/7 buses that are right at the front of the supermarket. So they're on private land, but it's 24/7 accessible, and it's a public bus stop. So there's these are the ones that we need to sort out what they need to be, because there are some local authorities who will put them in, and there are some local authorities who won't put them in to NaPTAN because of that public-private land break. And I'm trying to sit down and figure out what the intent is and what we can go up and ask policy peoples like BB will help us go to the various right places and ask these questions as to if it's a public bus service with a bus stop that's used by the public, it happens to be on private land, it should be a NaPTAN because then you're mapping it correctly. The on street, off street, that's an entire red herring at this point. It's should we be putting those in? And those are, and some people have been using the on street, off street around that, I think. And I think understanding this other thing of on street is anytime, day or night, off street is access restricted by time. And if we can be clear on that, I think that really helps this, which means your rail replacement bus stops, some might be by this on street, some might be off street, but they're going to be whatever time the rail station is open. So it's the rail station that is the core thing of its timing. The rail replacement buses obviously run when the rail station runs. Because Alex, Amy's about to say, oh yes, but yes. No, I realised that when rail replacement buses are running, the rail station is in fact closed. I was meaning the hours of operation would generally match the rail station. You're not going to have a rail replacement bus running at a time when a train would not run, unless your rail replacement buses is miles of hours out. Am I just hitting edge cases very, very hard here? I'm seeing Amy giving me those looks of like, you're running into the edge cases, run away from the edge cases and just think of it in a big holistic bubble for a bit. Solve for 80% or 90%, which is what we're trying to do with rail, and then we'll figure out the 10%, which is going to take 90% of the effort, but we've got most of the information in. Alex, you've come off mute. I'm hoping you've got an idea?
Sorry, I've just never had this. I've never thought about this issue of on street, off street with regard to supermarkets before. Because we've got, I'm thinking like we got loads of schools we go into with registered bus service. We pick up actually on their grounds. Yeah, I've never really thought about it. We've just always just put them in NaPTAN, and nobody's ever, I don't think, raised the fact that
Wales is a. I'm just
yeah,
going to go
weird.
Wales, Wales, but also school buses. I don't want to open that door right now. I know there's stuff going on from CPT and OPDI and the department around school bus services and where they sit.
No,
which
not closed services. I mean,
open
we've got
services.
normal register service. Goes into the school ground to pick up at school times as part of the standard run.
Right. Okay, which is quite different. So some areas, not Wales has not been doing that in quite the same way as Wales has been doing that. So part of just asking this question is, and with Tim here, but not putting Tim under any pressure, is we need to kind of think about these things of like registered services running onto somewhere private to do a public pickup. So the members of the public could walk into the school and also catch the bus if they wanted from those stops at that time of day.
Well,
that opens up another can of worms there, because we've had this conversation before. Because they're available to pupils that are under distance, so therefore they pay for their travel. They are then just whilst they're a student, they are at that point in the scheme of the legislation, they are just a member of the public using a bus service. But we have actually had that question from a head teacher who said, well, actually, if you've got somebody on the bus who then wants to go to the end destination, they're getting off in my school. And I said, I don't know how we get around this, because if I can't make it a closed service because then it's not registered, therefore people can't pay a fare. It's a really weird one, and I just think it's one of those ones where don't ask the question sometimes.
I think, and this is one of the things that I think hopefully we can sort out at that policy level as to what these are, what they need to be in NaPTAN, what needs to be in BODS, which drives what needs to be in NaPTAN.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's in NaPTAN, we can then start to indicate, is it a stop that is used in a registered service but can only pick up or drop off specific people at that stop. I mean, honestly, as somebody who's travelled on occasional buses in London which get full of school pupils, I don't know why anyone would choose to do so.
No, and I think by that definition, it just self-polices.
Yeah, it's that self-policing, but it's also let's just double check and make sure that we've got the right things by policy within the systems, and we can just advise, because Wales are doing it slightly different to other local authorities. At least if you're around, if you're there and can talk, how are you doing those stops within school grounds that are on the registered services? And I hate to put you under the cosh.
For public services,
Mm-hmm.
We have, for public services that serve schools, they have to be dropped off on the main roads. You cannot take a public bus into a school ground.
Okay.
Legally, you are not allowed to for safeguarded issues. So any public bus that serves the school has to drop the children off on the main road. It cannot go into the school grounds.
Right. That explains one of the bus stops that I know of in Hertfordshire. Along by Ashley Green, there's a school stop there's a public stop for a school that's on the main road. The bus doesn't go into the school, but it stops on the main road and the kids walk into the school, which is a slightly different, and it feels like there's a slightly different scenario used in Wales. So this is going to be one of those ones of when we get when we talk more about school bus stops, this is going to be one of those complications of just making sure that everyone's using the same or similar ruling across the ecosystem, so that it's really clear what's where. Even if that means, Alex, we need to have a chat with those head teachers and go, we can't bring the bus needs to stop here, not there, because of this coming through. But I don't want to predict what will happen with policy, because you're a devolved nation which can do things very differently to everyone else, and also things are different in different places, and that's one of the things that what works in one place may not work in another. Is NaPTAN flexible enough? Is BODS flexible enough to allow these things to be accounted for? Tim?
Well, and that's the lack of flexibility in NaPTAN at the moment, because a bus stop is always off street. You don't have a off street bus stop. You only have on street bus, because of the way that the schema is. I will snip this.
Just going to put a note here. Yeah, it's one of the things, and changing the schema. I know that adding rail replacement bus stops is a change to the schema. I'm going to have a look at how we do it with the minimal amount of fuss, because we've got people on at least 3 different schemas still, and everyone's going to need to be aware of this change. One of the other things is we want to have a look at, can we move the 910 into a newer version of the schema, because it's currently on 2.1. If we pull it onto 2.4 point something or 2.5 point something, does that give us a chance to kind of do some of this tweaking without too much? I don't want to have to do a ton of, quite frankly, in the time that we've got to put in rail replacement buses, we're almost going to have to issue the schema change retroactively, because I'm not going to get time to and now I can announce the changes, I can put them up, but to build and do the full schema change management, I think is going to be really.
Let's talk.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
That's why the DFT have me around.
Yeah, and we can figure it out, Tim. But also, I want to ensure that we've got a really clear, plain text version of what the intent is and the understanding, and then we've got the backup in the schema document that's got that formal understanding. Amy, you're typing in something.
Sorry, I was just saying I need to drop off and go to another meeting now, but
no worries.
I'll watch the recording for the end.
Thank you so much. Really
Cheers.
appreciate your input. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, your bus and coach are off street. Stop type, stop classification. Yeah, bus, car, taxi. So on street is bus, off street is bus. But it's only a coach station.
So the off street is akin to the rail. So you've got entrance access areas, you've got bays, and things like that.
So interestingly, here there are coach on streets, which we need to also consider putting in. There's a number of stops for coaches that are not within a coach station. And so these are some of the little odd ones.
It's a little inconsistent.
It's fine. It's one of the things that came up when we were doing some of the work with the transfer of the CNDS into BODS. There's been a lot of, how can I put this in a way that is really clear? There was a lot of small adjustments made to the data once it was published by the coach operators to correct the data, and now and it's trying to figure out what those corrections were and getting the coach operators to actually go and do the fix themselves rather than the middle doing the fix in the middle, because it's just going to improve data for everybody. And some of it was just they were using the wrong stops, or they'd been using the wrong stop, a wrong ATCO code or something like that. We've got about 20 minutes left. Do we want to quickly touch on 999 stops because they might be of interest to Alex?
Go for it, yeah.
So if you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to bring up the mural that I took to ODPI. Just let me. Now we all get to see how slow my mural can be sometimes because I have so much in there. So there's a new type of stop, which is a new ATCO code, which is all about non-passenger stops. So I will just go through the service design ever so quickly. The main bulk of it, there's lots of bulk of it, but the main bulk of it is here because there's 3 types of stops that are not in the NaPTAN data set. So there's bus depots, driver rests, and bus driver changes. And then there's international passenger stops. So we've said international passenger stops use the NetX, there's a very few. Alex, I don't know if you run any that go internationally over to Ireland or anything like that, but if they do,
No, not yet.
Yeah, they should use the NetX version or the other country's version of the stop numbers. Don't try to bodge something in. We've got a number, and I'm using the word bodge. We've got a number of train stations that are in France that are located in Dover, because that's the locality, and it's like do all the stuff that puts them in the right place by using the right codes. But for you, Alex, to allow people to get better adherence and allow your automatic vehicle locations and your real-time information to line up better, we're putting in the ability for you to build out bus depots, driver rests, and bus driver changes, so that these are stops that are non-passenger stops. Passengers will never alight or join the bus at that point. I know drivers rest people hop off and hop back on the coach, but they're not leaving, they're not breaking their journey, they're not changing coaches or anything like that, they're staying on that coach. So these are there so we can do schedule adherence. So one of the advantages of putting them in for bus depots means that your driver can log into the route before driving from the bus depot to the first point, which means the bus will show up in the real-time information when it's going to be coming, rather than the bus arrives and then it shows up in the real-time information. It just allows you that head time in there, and the same with your driver's rests and your bus driver changes. If you've got them scheduled in, you can put them in, and then it's going to allow you to show compliance to your schedules a little bit better in BODs, because they won't be like, why does this bus stop here for 5 minutes? And it's like, that's called a driver's change, and that's how long it takes for a driver, and we've got this long distance. It just puts it in the right place.
That's really good, because that's one of the questions I always ask about, like the real time thing is, if when a bus is starting in the day, how does it predict if it's late or early if you don't know what time it's left the depot? Now, obviously, we've got our own stuff in our own app and everything that we can do. But yeah, from a BOD's point of view, the only requirement for us is to run our scheduled services on time. If I use 1 driver, 10 drivers, 40 buses, as long as the person stood at the stop is getting the service they require at 10 o'clock. But yeah, I've always said that it's a crazy thing that you only know when a bus is late when it starts to be late.
Yeah. So what we're suggesting for these codes is use 999, and then from all of these discussions we came up with the second point of using your NOC code, which means that it's going to be uniquely identifiable to you and that route. And then you can put in your whatever you like for your depot codes. So it just means that we won't end up with a whole pile of 999,001 type problems of having multiple stops called the same thing by putting the NOT code in there, which is a unique to every network operator. It just allows you to say, this is my stop and it's here. And it doesn't matter if there's two network operators, if there's two operators doing driver's rests at the same point, they can have a different stop. They don't need to share the stop number because they're effectively ignored in any publication of the route or anything like that. It's there so that BODS knows that you stop at this point for 5 minutes, and you can then adhere to schedule a lot better. So those are now available. You can start to use them. There's a few little tweaks. Amy's just left, and her and I are going to have a big, long conversation about some of the complications that have come up, especially from the coaches and the way that it's been implemented. And I'm going to get a list of all of those and go and talk with the KPMG peeps doing BODs, or the people doing BODs, talk through all of those tweaks that need to be made. They've got passenger stops, they've got international stops. The 999 aren't in quite right in the coaches yet. So they're a bit of a mess. We're sorting it out. Part of that was because people jumped the gun. I was proposing this and saying we're going to talk about this and start figuring it out, and people just went and put them in before I'd even built out how these should look and what the definitions were for them. 'Tis life. I'd rather people. That is the most hilarious moment for NaPTAN, given its pace of change, that people actually went and paced a change faster than we could do the communications on it. So yeah, and then the other thing that you might need to think about, and it's mostly for Alex as well, if you do anything with modification of a stop, so there's a modification number, there's a modification next to the status, which is like pending, revised, new, etc. Don't even, it's just not working. It might be consistent in Wales because Wales is all on the one software and they've all transitioned at the same time, but it is inconsistently applied across the ecosystem. All different systems have been applying it slightly differently. For example, London is all stuck on new and has been since they started. Elise probably has been doing it really well since with the stops that migrated, but there'll be other stops that haven't been doing it so well because the software sometimes isn't picking it up. It's the same with revision number. We did some live testing actually on one of the calls where we were discussing what we should do with these, and somebody, I can't remember who, went and made a change in their software and expected the revision number to increment, and it didn't. It's only incrementing with some changes and not others. And the clear down code ain't been used for so long. We're just going to quietly suppress that data and just trying to clean up the data that's pushed out, so that the data that is, ignore them for now, and what we're going to do is start to suppress them in the output. So I know that you can't stop giving them to us. That's part of your software. It's like the notes field. We take the notes field in and we just suppress its contents. That's kind of what we're going to do with these. We're just going to start suppressing the contents, so it's really clear and easy for people to understand that these fields just aren't providing value and just aren't being used. There's more, Tim. I've got more. After those quality things, there are more fields that will start pulling apart. But these were the top three that, if we got these ones done, especially the modification, it really started to clear up a lot of problems. There's simply active and inactive. Active, inactive, and then because we can now remove stops, it's either an active stop, you can use it, an inactive stop, don't use it for insert reasons here, and then when the stop is no longer ever going to be used, we can just remove it completely from the data set. So it's really allowed a huge simplification of that, because when we went back through the data, unfortunately, the modifications made a lot of sense, just the way systems and everything had applied them across the 25 years to this point, or so of a lot of the NaPTAN data. It had just reached the point of turning into spaghetti where there was nothing that was really clear. And then in investigating why nothing was really clear, we started to uncover, hey, this is just turned into, it's not, for whom is this data goodly, was a really good question, and the answer was no one. And just being able to answer that, we just went, yeah, we just need to withdraw this data. And it's the same with revision number. So Elise, I know that your system will increment them and use them, but it will not be the way that your system does it and the way that Wales does it is not consistent. And it's not happening consistently on the same types of changes, which is unfortunate, but that's how things have happened. And I think some of the same problems is coming up, not to make Tim's face grimace, but the same problem is coming up with Trans Exchange of some systems are incrementing on some changes and not others, and that's inconsistent across the different software ecosystems.
So what do I need to do to rectify that?
You can't, Elise. It's too broken across the entire systems. So what we're doing is your system will still provide us a revision number. We will just suppress it in what we publish.
Okay.
Because and because I'm very aware that making changes to your systems, Elise, is really difficult, and a lot of these fields will be mandatory fields or back-end fields that you never see that are just provided to us. There is no change for you. We will still take it in. What we will do is just not publish it.
Okay.
Same as with your notes data, because your notes data sometimes contains a little bit of PII. Tim Rivet doesn't like this bus stop outside of his house and has put in a planning permission and wants to move it 20 metres. We can't publish Tim's name in the open data set, obviously. So what we do is we just basically strip out all the notes. So you can have them, your systems publish them because that's the way that they've been set up. We just make sure that they're not part of the published data set. And that's exactly the same model we're using for these three fields as well. And also cleaning up PlusBus. We're going to do that in the same way of just one of the things we're going to do to remove the duplicate data set is just to suppress its output. And then we'll look at how we remove it properly, how we combine it and all of that. But that's getting 148 local authorities to manually remove PlusBus data from bus stops. Yeah, let's not. Let's find a way of doing that at my end. And it's one of those things of the philosophy of NaPTAN was always the local authorities know stuff and we will publish things. This is kind of like keeping in the same mode as with the notes. You can give us the data. We know that that's the data from you, but we're also aware that these fields are not working. Also, there's 2 PlusBuses. The one that's in NaPTAN is very broken and is not to be used, and use the version that Amy and Mike run as part of PlusBus. And it wasn't a problem until they've started to go live and electronically publish the PlusBus information, and it's now being used a lot wider and a lot more travel planners. And that's why we're just being really clear of like, there's 2 data sets, don't use the one in NaPTAN. It's been, I've known about this since 2020. It was more just a matter of when we actually had to move and make something happen. Cool. Excellent. I will sit down and I will work through this. Tim, we'll spend some time really sitting down and figuring this out. What I want to do is also take this with our team, because what I've done is I've asked them to mock me up what this rail replacement MVP will look like in a data file, and hopefully I will have that soonish, and we can actually start to have a look, and you can give us feedback on how that works. I can give it to Alex. We'll give it to the people who are making the on the bus systems as well, just making sure that it meets everyone's requirements for it's got where it is, it's very clear the data that you need to pull across, and we can make that as clear as possible and fit in with this model. And I like this model of on street and off street being about time of day, and
It's
we can
not
be really clear on that.
quite consistent. The more
Oh,
I've been
absolutely.
looking at it, it's
What
not
is the
even so. No, but
I am shooketh that it's not consistent. Seriously shooketh. So Tim, let's sit down, because I don't want to break. I want to fit in with the trans model. If there's a way of simplifying this within what we do, let's have a sit down and a real think about how we can make this simpler and easier to understand, so that we've got that real clarity between us. And yes, I will be asking you what I did spend a year, remember, asking this community how to define a bus stop, and we arrived at a bus stop is where the bus stops.
yeah,
And it's doing that a little bit more, just trying to dive into these. So using that same model, a rail replacement bus stop is where a rail replacement bus stops.
yeah.
That's it. That's all that it needs. If it's got time restrictions in there, we'll need to figure that out. We'll need to figure out whether we put that in or how we manage that. But it's very much, this is where a rail replacement bus stops and picks up, but it mostly stops. So I'm just going to swing across. I've got my usual feedback corner. Oh yeah, even later. So one of the cool things from yesterday was the person from the rail delivery group said, do you know this person who's doing all the accessibility information at train stations? And no, we'd not met her in all of our work. So he's going to do an introduction. I need to chase him up this week. He's going to do an introduction to us, because what we want to do, one of the things of putting platforms in, is we can bring in the accessibility audit information and summarize it in a way that it's available for journey planners at a really simple level, and it's not held within that silo of a website, or that's linked into A+ NaPTAN. And how we do that, and what we do, and where the rules are, and all of that, we're going to figure it out. We're working on bus stops right now. This is even later what I'm starting to kind of look at what we would need to bring in, so that it's consistent, so that I know that if I need low steps or no steps, I can put in that information and get a journey that matches my needs and my access needs. But that's even later. And then finally, I was just going to run to feedback corner. I love your feedback. Just
Can I
tell
throw
me
a
what's
spanner?
useful.
Can I throw a massive spanner in the
Oh,
works
sorry.
here?
Oh, no. Alex, you're not
Sorry.
going to throw a spanner in the works. You're going to ask a really good question.
Oh, I doubt it. Ultimately, we're going to put all this data in because the data is there ultimately for people to plan a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is one exception to all. So the rail replacement service would go in a journey in the 900 stops, and then when the railway line was closed, somebody planning a journey for that day would be told, well, you don't walk to the train station, you actually walk to this bus stop here, and it's a 900 bus stop. Here's my ultimate now, right? What about when the rail network doesn't put rail replacement on, but allows people to use the normal bus service?
That is a and I'm going to say edge case. That's one of those cases where I need to figure it out. My current job was to make the rail replacement stops fit PSV AIR regulations. The next question will be, what are the edge cases? What are the little bits that we need to consider? So yes, that's often the one in London. Your train tickets will be valid on any local bus services.
We do it particularly if the lane is close between Newport and Cardiff. Us and Cardiff Bus will just accept rail tickets between the two cities.
Yeah. That is something that we're just going to have to sit down and look at how that information gets to a journey planner, so that it's really clear for the journey planners that this is on this day, you're going to catch a bus and put the person onto the bus from this point to this point, and it's not a rail replacement bus. So this is also part of allowing us to get the rail replacement, a little bit more of the rail replacement stuff through. But
Right.
the main rationale for doing the rail replacement buses is to meet that PSV AIR regulations of being able to announce on a bus doing a rail replacement service, this is the bus to Glasgow. Oh, good Lord, I don't know my country well enough. This is a bus to Glasgow. Next stop is Newcastle. And hopefully that was actually a journey that made sense. I have no idea. Tim nodded and is like, at least you got them in the right order.
That's fine.
Yeah. So how we do those ones, I think it's very much, however it's done now, let's just ensure that we are providing enough data that somebody can pick it up and use it. If that makes sense, Alex.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm always of the thing of, like, we all get a bit obsessive about data, don't we? Particularly if you're on these kind of calls, you're kind of a bit of a data geek. But ultimately, it's right, I'm not data, but we're trying to do it to be used for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to get to the ultimate thing is, right, well, actually, yeah, we do something, and then how do we solve the ones that slip through the net? Because ultimately, I'm now stood on a station going, well, there's no rail replacement bus here.
How do I get there?
There's a 10-minute service going between two towns. But if I put any kind of journey plan in and I click train, it's going to give me no option at all.
Yeah.
But if I click bus, I might not click bus. That was all. Only because, particularly between Newport and Cardiff, there's quite a lot of occasions that we have become the default rail replacement.
Let me just put that in here, because I think that's a good one for here. Use local buses. Bus with rail ticket. Talk with Newport to Cardiff.
Yeah, or like we've had, like, where they can't get a big coach down one of the stations. They've said, from this particular station, use the local bus, and you will then feed on to another rail replacement at a larger station.
Yeah. Use local bus if no coach. Yeah, these are the ones that are we will hopefully be able to find. I've found a couple where it's basically like, don't bring anything larger than a minibus up this road, because you can't turn around. And I'm just looking at the narratives within those, going, how on earth do I turn this into something? But this is why we're tranching it in different things, of trying to get 90% of them done with that MVP, and release one, and then going, okay, how do we tranche off all the exceptions so that we make the exceptions make sense? And eventually the goal is to have all of the rail replacement bus stops in the correct places with that little feedback loop, so that they can be adjusted if they need to be adjusted, and it's all there and it's all nice and clean, and we know where the data is coming from, and it makes sense for everybody. Oh, I need to run because I am due in another meeting about, believe it or not, rail replacement buses and NaPTAN. So I'm going to quickly stop this. So sorry. Thank you, everyone, for your time, for your patience. Really appreciate your input. I've got to run. So does BB. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.